Imagine spending like $2 million on state-of-the-art security software. You've got next-generation firewalls. You've got mandatory employee cybersecurity training. I mean, your dashboards are all green. Your IT team is happy. And as a business leader, you sleep pretty well at night.
Right. You feel untouchable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But tomorrow morning, a 22-year-old contractor is going to walk into your headquarters, plug this tiny, maybe $50 device into some forgotten wall outlet in a conference room.
And within 3 hours, they own your entire network.
Yeah. It is terrifying. And that is exactly why today's deep dive is all about what I like to call the ultimate final exam in cybersecurity. We're looking at CIS Critical Control 18, which is penetration testing. So if the previous 17 controls are all about building your defenses, Control 18 asks really the only question that matters when the pressure is on. Does your defense actually work in the real world?
Yeah, and that gap between perceived security and actual security is where, honestly, the most devastating breaches happen.
So people just trust the tools, right?
Oh, absolutely. Organizations assume they are safe purely based on their purchase history. They bought the right tools, they configured them according to the manual, they checked all the compliance boxes. But a penetration test doesn't assume you're secure.
Right.
It actively tries to prove that you are not. It's this authorized, totally controlled attempt to compromise systems using the exact same techniques a real-world threat actor would use. I mean, you are basically authorizing a professional to dismantle your assumptions.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because getting into that mindset, I mean, that requires a massive shift. The people who build security programs and the people who break them, they're looking at the exact same digital environment, but they're playing two completely different games.
Completely different.
The builder is looking at like a checklist of features, while the burglar, they're looking for the seams between those features.
Yes, the mindset difference is, well, it's the foundational element of why we test at all. A security team will look at their environment and think, we enabled multi-factor authentication for all our users. Our perimeter is secure.
Check the box, we're good.
Right, exactly. But an attacker looks at that exact same environment and thinks, well, I don't need to guess your password. I don't even need to intercept your phone's push notification. I just need to infect your laptop with a piece of malware that scrapes your browser's memory.
Oh, wow. Because once they scrape that memory, they can steal the session cookie.
Exactly, the mechanism, yeah. When you log in with MFA, your browser gets this, think of it like a digital VIP pass.
Right, the cookie.
Yeah, a session cookie. And if an attacker steals that cookie, they can just inject it right into their own browser. The website sees the VIP pass and just assumes, oh, you've already completed the MFA challenge.
That is wild.
Yeah, the attacker bypasses the entire multi-million-dollar authentication perimeter without ever triggering a single alert.
And that perfectly illustrates that builder versus burglar dynamic. Because the builder thinks, we have immutable backups, so ransomware won't destroy our business.
Right.
But the burglar thinks, okay, where are those backups stored? What account manages them?
Yeah.
And can I compromise the administrator's credentials to just quietly delete the backup schedules 30 days before I actually launch the ransomware?
Which is so scary, but that is the exact reason Control 18 exists. It forces you to validate those theoretical defenses against a thinking, breathing adversary.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Control 1 dictates that you know what assets are on your network. Control 14 mandates security awareness training. Control 18 puts those theories under actual fire.
It's the real test.
Exactly. It's the mechanism that proves whether your IT administrator really will spot a highly targeted phishing email, or, if your network segmentation actually stops a compromised marketing laptop from talking to the payroll server.
Which is why I think we need to clear up a massive point of confusion here. Because in boardroom discussions, you constantly hear the terms vulnerability scan and penetration test just thrown around interchangeably.
Oh, all the time. It drives me crazy.
Right. On a spreadsheet, they might both satisfy a compliance requirement for, security testing, but functionally, they're entirely different exercises.
Completely. What's fascinating here is the distinction really comes down to automation versus analysis.
Okay, how so?
Well, a vulnerability scan is automated software, right? It just compares your environment against a database of known flaws. It flags missing patches, outdated software versions, maybe default configurations.
Just a list of things.
Yeah, exactly. It is incredibly useful for basic hygiene, but it fundamentally lacks context.
I always like to think of a vulnerability scanner as a spelling and grammar checker in a word processor.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, because it's highly efficient at scanning 100 pages and telling you, hey, a word is misspelled here, or a comma is out of place
Mhm.
there. But a grammar checker cannot tell you if the story actually makes sense. It doesn't understand the plot. A human penetration tester is reading the plot. They are looking at the business logic to see if the rules of the application itself can be manipulated, you know, even if the spelling is technically correct.
That analogy holds up perfectly when you look at how human testers actually chain vulnerabilities together. Because a scanner might find, say, an internal web server running an outdated plugin.
Okay.
And it flags that as a medium severity issue. Why? Because the server isn't exposed to the public internet, so the IT team just puts it at the bottom of their backlog.
Sure, they have bigger fish to fry.
Right. But a human penetration tester discovers that same outdated plugin and uses a technique called server-side request forgery, or SSRF.
Manipulating the server into making requests on the attacker's behalf, right?
Precisely. So the tester tricks that internal web server into querying the cloud provider's backend metadata service.
Oh, sneaky.
Very. And that query pulls back temporary, highly privileged cloud credentials. So then the tester uses those credentials to access, say, an Amazon S3 bucket containing the company's entire unencrypted customer database.
Wow. So the automated scanner just saw a misspelled word. It just saw an outdated plugin.
Yep. But the human tester understood the plot and used that plugin as a backdoor to steal the crown jewels. Automation finds the flaw, but the human proves the risk.
So how exactly does a tester move from getting that initial foothold to taking over the whole network? Because, I mean, we've all seen the movies where a hacker types furiously for 30 seconds and a giant green access granted flashes on the screen.
I wish it was that fast.
Right. But the sources detail a very methodical attack chain that these professionals follow.
Yeah, the attack chain is a highly structured methodology. It always begins with reconnaissance.
Like casing the joint.
Exactly. Gathering open source intelligence on the target, identifying employee names on LinkedIn, mapping out public IP addresses, and finding exposed services.
Right, finding the open windows.
Yeah, and once they find a weakness, they exploit it to gain initial access. The getting in is really just the first step. The critical phase is what happens next, which is lateral movement and privilege escalation.
Basically sneaking from a low-level computer to a highly sensitive one.
Yeah.
But how do they actually do that without knowing the passwords? I mean, they don't just guess them, right?
No, they do it by living off the land and abusing built-in operating system functions. So let's say a tester gets onto a standard employee's laptop. They aren't looking for Word documents, they are looking for memory remnants.
Wait, memory remnants, like what?
Well, if an IT administrator logged into that machine last week to fix a printer issue, Windows likely left a cryptographic hash of that administrator's password right there in the system memory. So the tester just uses a tool to scrape that hash.
And they don't even need to crack the hash to find out what the password actually is, right? They can just use the hash itself.
Yes. That technique is called pass the hash. The tester simply presents that cryptographic hash to the network's domain controller, which just accepts it as valid authentication.
Just like that.
Just like that. In a matter of minutes, the tester goes from a restricted user on a marketing laptop to a domain administrator with the power to control literally every computer, server, and database in the company.
That completely reframes the scope of what needs to be tested. I mean, when we talk about scopes, businesses have to decide where this battle even takes place.
Exactly. You have to define the boundaries.
Right, because you have the external test, which is probing what an attacker sees from the open internet, like firewalls, web applications, VPN portals. Then you have the internal test, which assumes the breach has already happened. The attacker is inside, maybe via a compromised vendor or some physical device dropped on the network, and the goal is to see just how far they can spread.
And there are also highly specialized scopes, too, like web application testing, which focuses purely on the custom software a company built, hunting for things like SQL injection or, broken authorization controls.
Or wireless testing, right?
Oh, yeah. Wireless testing is huge. Seeing if someone sitting in the parking lot can break into the corporate Wi-Fi and just pivot right into the main network.
But, there is a completely different way to bypass every firewall, every encrypted wireless network, and all that internal segmentation we just talked about.
Yeah.
And it involves completely ignoring the technology.
The human element.
Yes. Here's where it gets really interesting. Social engineering. I mean, you can invest millions in technical defenses, but if an attacker calls your IT help desk, posing as, say, a senior executive traveling abroad who desperately needs a password reset to access a board presentation more.
And the help desk just resets the password without verifying their identity.
Exactly. The technology is irrelevant at that point.
Yeah.
The biggest vulnerability wasn't digital, it was human empathy.
It's true. Threat actors exploit human nature. Our desire to be helpful, our fear of authority, our curiosity. Phishing campaigns, phone-based phishing, or even dropping malicious USB drives in the company parking lot just to see who picks one up and plugs it in.
Just hoping someone wants free photos or whatever.
Yeah, these are incredibly effective vectors. However, testing the human element requires really stringent guardrails because you are no longer just sending packets to a server. You are interacting with real employees.
Yeah, I can imagine the fallout if this goes wrong. If you send a simulated phishing email claiming the company is doing mass layoffs and someone needs to click a link to see their severance package, you're going to cause genuine panic. You'll destroy morale and probably invite a massive lawsuit.
Which is exactly why social engineering must be heavily coordinated with human resources and legal teams. The goal of Control 18 is to uncover systemic weaknesses in your security awareness training. It's not to traumatize your workforce or single out individuals for humiliation.
Right, it's not about making people feel stupid.
Exactly. The pretext of the attack must be carefully crafted so it tests the defense without causing operational or emotional damage.
But doing this kind of granular, human-led chaining, dumping memory, passing hashes, calling help desks, pivoting across domains, that sounds like it would take weeks of highly specialized labor, and time is money.
Oh, it is.
So are companies actually paying elite professionals an hourly rate to do all this manually? Or is there a way to automate this? Which naturally brings us to the financial realities outlined in the source material.
Yeah. The economics of penetration testing pretty much dictate the strategy for most organizations. You constantly have to balance the depth of the assessment against the available budget.
Let's look at the market ranges here. Basic vulnerability scanners, which just give you that automated list of missing patches, those might run anywhere from free up to about $3,000 annually.
Pretty affordable.
Right. But then you step up to autonomous penetration testing platforms, tools like Horizon 3's Node Zero, Pantera, or Intruder. Depending on the size of your network, those platforms can cost $15,000 to well over $150,000 a year.
Those autonomous platforms are fascinating, though, because they attempt to automate the exact attack chaining we just discussed. They don't just flag the outdated plugin. They actively exploit it, scrape the memory, and attempt to pass the hash to the domain controller, all through software algorithms.
But they still have limitations, right? Especially when it comes to novel business logic, which is why you have manual, human-driven pen tests.
Exactly. You still need the human brain.
A typical scoped engagement for a medium-sized business usually lands between $4,000 and $25,000. But if you want a full-blown red team engagement where a team of professionals spends weeks covertly trying to break in undetected,
This is where it gets expensive.
yeah, that easily hits $40,000 to over $100,000, with individual tester day rates floating between $1,000 and $3,000.
Yeah, and for a mid-sized enterprise, absorbing a six-figure red team engagement just isn't feasible, nor is it usually necessary based on their threat profile. The most practical architectural approach for a standard business, say a company with a few hundred employees, a hybrid cloud environment, and a dedicated internal network, is really a blended model.
A hybrid approach. So they might allocate $10,000 to $15,000 annually for automated, continuous monitoring platforms, to ensure no glaring holes appear when an IT admin misconfigures a firewall on a Tuesday.
Right, keep the baseline secure.
And then they spend an additional $20,000 once a year bringing in human testers to probe the complex business logic that the software algorithms just can't comprehend.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that blended architecture perfectly illustrates the golden rule of security testing economics. Automation reduces the cost of repetition, while human testing increases the depth of the investigation.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, if your digital environment changes constantly, new software updates, new employee accounts, new cloud integrations, you desperately need the repetition of automation. But to understand how a really creative adversary will abuse the specific workflows of your industry, you need that human depth.
I'm looking at the operational side of bringing those human testers in. And honestly, the rules of engagement seem terrifying to authorize.
It's a big deal.
Right. If I'm a business owner signing a formal document that gives a third party the green light to actively exploit my servers, scrape my memory, steal my data, what happens if they accidentally crash the payroll database on a Friday afternoon? Who carries the liability for that operational downtime?
That anxiety is entirely justified, which is exactly why the pre-flight checklist for a penetration test is rigorous. Written authorization is non-negotiable.
Get in writing.
Always. Without a formal, signed document clearly defining the scope, a penetration test is legally indistinguishable from a criminal cyber attack.
Wow.
The rules of engagement dictate exactly what systems are included, what is strictly off limits, the testing windows, and the emergency escalation paths. Like, if a tester's exploit causes a production server to spike to 100% CPU utilization, there must be a defined protocol for the internal IT team to call a halt to the test immediately.
But you want the internal IT team to know the test is happening? I mean, if they know the hackers are coming on Monday morning, they're going to be on high alert. They're going to be watching the logs like hawks. Doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose of testing your everyday readiness?
Well, it depends on the objective, and that's the core difference between a standard penetration test and a red team exercise.
Okay, break that down for me.
A standard pen test is usually loud. The objective is to identify as many vulnerabilities as possible within, say, a 2-week window. The testers don't care about being stealthy, they care about being thorough. So the Internal Security Operations Center, the SOC, is usually aware of the test and might even whitelist the tester's IP addresses so the firewalls don't automatically block them.
So it's basically a cooperative exercise to find the holes.
Correct. A red team exercise, however, is adversarial and highly covert. The objective isn't to find every flaw. It's to achieve a specific operational goal, like exfiltrating a specific database of customer records, without the SOC ever detecting their presence.
That's the real test of your defenders.
Exactly. A red team validates not just your technology, but your detection and response capabilities. If the red team achieves their objective and the internal security team never even saw the alerts, you have a massive gap in your monitoring strategy.
Okay, so the dust settles, the test concludes, and the firm hands over the final report. This document isn't just a receipt for services rendered, right? The sources emphasize that a properly structured report is a literal roadmap for survival, and it has to speak two very different languages.
Yes. A professional report is bifurcated into an executive summary and a technical breakdown. The executive section is for the board of directors and the C-suite. It translates all that technical jargon into actual business risk.
So it doesn't just list technical flaws.
No, it doesn't tell the CEO that the firm discovered an insecure API endpoint. It tells the CEO that an attacker could use the website to download every customer's credit card number, potentially resulting in millions of dollars in regulatory fines and reputational destruction. It provides the financial justification for security spending.
While the technical section is for the engineers actually turning the wrenches.
Yes, exactly.
It provides the exact step-by-step attack paths, the compromised credentials, and the specific remediation instructions. But there is a massive trap here when it comes to prioritizing those fixes, specifically regarding severity scores.
Relying purely on automated severity scores is a really dangerous game.
Why is that?
Because a vulnerability scanning tool might flag a misconfiguration as medium severity because in a vacuum, the exploit is complex or requires very specific conditions to execute.
But the human tester provides the context, right?
Exactly. They might show that while the flaw is technically a medium difficulty to exploit, doing so gives them direct, unauthenticated access to the core financial database. The technical difficulty is medium, but the business impact is totally critical.
Why?
If your IT team is only mandated to fix high and critical technical scores, they will leave a business-ending loophole wide open simply because a software tool lacked the context to categorize it correctly.
Context is everything. And it really highlights the ultimate failure condition for Control 18. Too many organizations view penetration testing purely as a compliance checklist. They want to hand a clean report to their cyber insurance provider to lower their premiums or show their clients a spotless executive summary.
It's totally backwards.
Wanting a clean report is completely backwards. If you pay $20,000 for a penetration test and the report comes back completely clean, you either possess a flawless digital network, which defies the laws of computing, or you just hired a subpar tester who didn't look hard enough.
Right, you didn't get your money's worth.
A successful test isn't one that finds nothing. A successful test is one that uncovers devastating, critical issues before a ransomware syndicate finds them. while you still have the luxury of time to actually engineer a solution.
Finding the vulnerability is really only 50% of the value. The remaining 50% requires organizational ownership. Every single finding in that report must be assigned to a specific individual within the IT or engineering department.
Someone has to be on the hook for it.
Absolutely. There must be a clear remediation plan, a strict deadline, and crucially, a scheduled retest to verify that the implemented fix actually closed the attack path. If a penetration test report just sits in a drawer or rots as a PDF in some compliance folder, the entire exercise was nothing more than really expensive security theater.
You just paid a premium to find out exactly how a threat actor is going to dismantle your business, and then you chose to do absolutely nothing about it. Control 18 isn't just a technical purchase. It is a highly controlled business exercise designed to validate all the time, money, and effort you poured into Controls 1 through 17. The goal isn't to test every single IP address and coffee machine on your network. The goal is to test what matters most to your organization's survival.
Because knowledge is only valuable when it's actually applied. The true metric of a mature security program isn't how many attacks it prevents in theory, but how rapidly it adapts to the flaws uncovered in practice.
And that reality leaves us with one final thought to process. We've talked extensively about building a fortress, hiring a burglar to test the defenses, and patching the holes they find. But a penetration test is, by definition, a point-in-time snapshot. It proves exactly how secure your infrastructure was on the specific week the engagement occurred. But your digital environment is a living organism. It changes daily. You hire new employees, you push code updates, you integrate third-party cloud services, and threat actors discover zero-day vulnerabilities in software you've trusted for years. So ask yourself this: if a penetration test only proves you were secure yesterday, what did your company change today? We'll see you on the next deep dive.